Hi there, and thank you for joining me today. I'm Doris Venter of Library Arts. And are you a Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them fan? I am too. And the creatures that came out of that story are so wonderful that I've created some drawing programs based on some of the creatures. And today we're going to focus on the Fwooper, the bird with the colorful feathers that come in pinks and oranges and greens, apparently, and are perfect for magicians in training. So, what I'd like you to do today is grab a sheet of copy paper, a black marker if you have, some color pencils, and we'll get started. I think it's going to be a fun program, and I'm glad you're here to join me. Let's get started. Okay, so let's get started with our drawing. You're going to need an 8.5 by 11 sheet of white copy paper, just plain paper that you probably have around your house. You're going to want to have it in a vertical orientation. You should have a pencil, an eraser, and you know what? If you're using color pencils like me, it's kind of handy to have a little pencil sharpener nearby if you can. When we look at the Fwooper, I have read about the Fwooper that it has a combination of orange, purple, pink, and sort of like lime green colors. But honestly, when I've looked at it, I haven't seen too much green in it, but you could always introduce that color if you wanted to. So we're going to draw a Fwooper sitting on a branch with its magnificent tail and the colors and that very serious expression it appears to have today. And I want you to join me by getting started with that, just the pencil and the paper for now. So the Fwooper is sort of, if you think about it as a simple shape, it's sort of like a teardrop shape. So what I'm going to do at the top, and I'm going to work very lightly at first, is I'm going to just put that kind of teardrop shape onto my paper, trying to make it fairly centered. And I'm doing a very light sketch because I just find that's easier if I do that. Then if I go in too dark and have to erase, it's much more difficult. Now we're going to point out basically where his eyes are. His head is quite fluffy. His eyes are about right here. And I'm just going to put a circle lightly and another circle right here just to kind of indicate where the eyes are going to go. And then we're going to have this sort of triangular nose, but not nose, actually beak coming out in between. That's the basic shape of your Fwooper. I'm going to make it a little narrower on this side so it kind of balances out with the other side I have. And then his feet, or her feet, will be very close together here at the bottom, sort of clutching onto a branch. So let's go back to the top, and we're just going to add a little texture around the edges of the Fwooper because he really is a fluffy, feathery thing. He doesn't really have the kind of smooth finish that looks like I started with. Now down here, he actually puffs out just a little bit and comes in, and that's sort of the breast of the bird. And then right below the beak area, there's a little roughness here. And there's a little bit of a sort of almost like a mane, if you will, of feathers that seem to come around and finish right before he puffs out below. Okay, so let's talk about the colors you're going to need. I picked out this really pretty mulberry purpley pink here. I have another purple. I have some pinks, a variety of blues. I have a little bit of orange because they do talk about a sort of orange color in there. I'm going to want to have a little bit of yellow around the edges of the eye, and of course I'm going to want to have a black. You might want to have a black marker, but you can leave that off for now. And the light blue is going to be for the little feathers that come from his tail and above his head here. So get your colors together. We're going to go back to drawing a few details. Now the Fwooper has this very serious kind of expression, so I'm going to put the kind of eyebrow shape that the Fwooper seems to have. And then coming out of that eyebrow is actually the eye. And so the eye is connected here. So we're going to go in a little further than I had originally planned. And then it's connected on the other side similarly, going right into that sort of eyebrow fold. We're putting a circle here. So it goes right into that eyebrow fold that makes them look kind of stern and serious. Then within that eye, we're going to put a large marble to represent the actual eye, almost filling the whole Fwooper's eye. And then within there, I would put a large pupil, sort of staring at us with that menacing look. Now, in terms of the white that you're going to want to create around the face later on, rather than use a white color pencil, I actually have a white oil pastel, because once we get the purples and magentas on here, it's going to be very difficult to see the white. So I'm suggesting you have a crayon or an oil pastel nearby for that step. Okay, so let's get down below here. We have the basic face sketched in. Let's just add some detail to the bottom here where his feet are. So you're going to have two skinny legs coming out. And it's sort of like a little curved foot here. It's just like a little finger or almost like a thumb shape. And then you're going to have another one coming out here. And a third one, again, very skinny and kind of bony, coming out here. And each one of those is going to have a very sharp claw. So there's three little finger-like joints on one hand, on one foot. And now the other one's going to come very close. And we're going to do a similar thing. It's going to come out and be kind of bony and go in with a sharp claw. And then you're going to have a second one, maybe just slightly longer and bony, also come in with a claw. And then there's a third one, again, over here, a little shorter than the last one, and then come in with a claw. So that's his feet, and his feet are going to hold on to kind of a gnarly branch here. We're going to have it go between the toes of the claws here and go across. So we're just adding that branch-like shape, and you could, you know, draw some little bark shapes with pencil to kind of show different colors. If you wanted to put a branch coming off of it or up here, you could do that also. Maybe one down here. Okay, so that's basically a light sketch of what we're gonna do. And then later up here, you're gonna have these little feathery type details that come out of him or her. You decide if it's a male or a female. And then there's a tail down below. So the tail is going to come out between the feet here. It's going to curve over, and you're just going to put a little feathery shape on the end. I'll put another one right here, and going to bring it over here. And they just kind of come out like that. So you have this little feathery plumage coming out from the bottom of the bird. And there you go. That is basically your Fwooper drawing. Now we're ready to get into color. So I'm going to stop you right here so you can get a chance to get caught up with your picture. And then we'll jump right into color next. So get ready to collect your color pencils. Alrighty. So we're back. We're ready to start adding some color to the Fwooper. Now remember, you want to have a range of colors in the pink, purple, dark blue, light blue, a little bit of orange to add a little contrast if you wish. Even like a red or a pink orange could be added too. And these are the colors that we're going to primarily use on the Fwooper. Okay, so let's get started. The area around the eyes that I started to draw before, we're just going to leave that sort of lightly highlighted because that's going to be a white area, and also around the muzzly beak here, we're going to have some white in that area. So I'm just going to leave that, and also below here will be a little lighter. But I'm going to start in actually with some orangey red colors, and you'll notice that my my pencil is going outwards almost like a fountain, squirting out water or shooting out water to the edges of the bird's head. And I'm doing that intentionally because that is the direction that the feathers go. So I want the directions of my color pencil to kind of go in the same direction. And notice that I'm using very light strokes, not putting a lot of pressure on my pencil because I really want the color to build up gradually. So now I'm going to start bringing some of that bright pink color in, kind of a pinkish magenta purple, and I'm just going to blend it in right on top of that pretty orangey red I just put down. Again, building up gradually, noticing that there's pinks, purples, oranges, all mixed in here. And then I'm going to bring in some blue purples in a minute too. And I'm also going to start going out to the edges to emphasize that rough, feathery texture the bird has near the edges of the head. So keep the marks broad, light, and build them up. Now why don't we get in there with some purpley blues, start bringing those in to show a little bit of that. And they're going to be more intense here, but not as strong as the pink. There's actually more purples near the edges of the bird's head than in the center. So I'm going to go there, and now I'm going to go back and I'm going to blend some of that pink on top of that purple again to really make it blend more into the face, because it gets rather dark in here actually. So everything is about building up slowly, but using nice broad strokes to really get the feeling of feathers on the bird. So I'm going to come out over here again, going out to really emphasize the rough patterning. I actually have a pale purple I'm going to bring in near the eyes here, sort of a lavender purple, and I'm going to go over that with some of that pink purple in a minute. I just want to get that in there. Now the eyes themselves, if you have a black, like I have a nice black here, I'm going to do the pupils really dark black, really dark black. Around that, the bird appears to have sort of a dark brown, I would say, color for the eye. So I didn't have a dark brown out, so I'm going to get one now, and I'm going to use that to color in the iris around the bird's eye. So he's got this dark brown eye surrounding the black pupil. Now that fills most of the eye, so I'm going to make this a bit bigger. It's a pretty large eye this bird has. Not a quiet, shy bird. It loves to sing. And apparently the thing you have to worry about is if you listen too long to this bird, it'll drive you insane. That's what I've read about the bird. So the idea is you have to use a magic spell to quiet the bird down so you can enjoy the beauty of the bird, but not go crazy listening to the bird. So here I'm just going to use my sharpener because my black color pencil just broke, which is an occupational hazard with color pencils, you'll notice. Okay, I'm going to go around, probably pressing too hard at the time. the edge of the eye with some black. Yeah, that makes those eyes really stand out. Now, right above it, as I was saying before, you can use some white to kind of show that this part is white on the bird, but you're going to find that the white's not going to show up that well after a while. So I'm going to start with some white, but then I'm going to go over it with a light pink. And I might later add some black or gray to bring it out. Also, right near there, right near the eyebrow, it gets a very dark purple to really make that white show out. So I'm going to really intensify the purple right near the eyebrows so that they really do stand out more. And like I said before, I was going to bring in some of that pretty magenta too, because that definitely plays a role right near the eyes too. Okay, now the beak itself is kind of a blackish grayish color, so I'm going to just use this kind of indigo blue to first outline it and give it a little shadow. I think of a center line down there. Give it a little shadow on one half, and on the other half you can use a lighter color, and it has a kind of a pinky orange part on the bottom. So I'm going to do that there, and I'm going to go find a gray to add some color to the other side. I think I have a gray over here. Right here I have a gray, and that sort of reminds me of the beak. Being a little bit gray on one side, a little darker on the other side. Now right up near the beak, you're going to see that white again, and then it's going to have the pink. So I'm putting some white in here first, and then I'm going to go back with the pink and sort of add that feathery texture going around the beak like that. Okay, so then we're going to bring some more purple right down here below that part, right where it's meeting with the beak. And I'll bring some more of that pink over here. And remember, you're just kind of layering and layering and layering. And you can always go back and say, well, I want more color there. It's a little too light. Because this is a pretty intense looking bird. So I'm going to go in here and add some more of that magenta color. I think that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to go in with that. Remember that color I started with? It was like a reddish orange. I'm going to start working on the chest of the bird, and actually right in the center here, it's almost like a reddish orange, then covered with pinks and purples. So I'm just going to, again, using the strokes to show the direction the feathers go. I'm now going to go over that with pinks, that magenta that I really like so much, but actually there's almost more purple too, so I'm going to definitely bring some purple in here too. So I have some nice dark purple here, kind of bluish, darkish purple that I'm seeing on the bird. But again, it's nice to see that color popping underneath it. So I'm trying to use the red to pop out below. And then as you go to the sides, it's actually becoming a much lighter purple, or much lighter. So I'm going to put a base color of lighter purple here. Big strokes, not being fussy here. And then I'm going to bring in, let's see, what are the purples? Oh, the blue purple. Oops. And there we go again, breaking. So I'll switch to this one. And it's almost like there's a little bit of darkness right near the edge, mixed in. You might even want to draw some shapes that look like feathery shapes down here. And darker there. Try to bring this all in. It's actually darker on one side of the bird's face than the other. So I'm going to try to blend these so it's not so abrupt, the change between the two. But I do want to make it intensive. I want that purple to really stand out. You can lighten it up with a little bit of white, but again, the white's not going to be great at showing up, so do what you have to do. Put a little bit in there. And of course, let's not forget, we could probably bring, oops, that's the broken one, bring out that really interesting eyebrow with a little black around it, just to kind of show how it shows off the eyes right here. And those eyes, let me tell you, there's a kind of a press thick, so I'm going to really darken those eyes because they really do pop. All right, so now we're getting down to the feet. And here we're going to actually go to a much paler pink, almost like a peach color. I would say have yourself a couple peach colors, and I have a couple right here that I'm going to use because they're much paler than the bird itself. I'm going to color in one of the foot, the other foot, and then I'm going to, you know, darken it a little bit near the edges with the darker beige. And then I'm going to add some black. It's almost like a shadow right in between the toes. It's very shadowy. And also between the two claws. It gets very dark and shadowy. And we're going to make that branch in the brown tones anyway, so we'll bring some brown in there. And the claws are black. Very black. So I'm putting some very black, sharp claws. And then our branch will be in the brown tone. So this is where I can get my brown out, and I can mix some brown into that shadowy black. Put some brown. I like to use more than one brown. I don't like to stick with just one brown. So I'm going to put a little bit of brown here. A little branch here. Kind of like a base color of brown. I think I might mix a little bit of that peach in there to lighten it up just a hair. And then I'm going to look for a reddish brown that I think would really, or a lighter brown to mix in with my branch. This is more of a tan brown, but I'm going to find a reddish brown in a moment, and I'm going to use that color too, because I really like it when there's a reddish brown in the darker tones. Here's a nice dark brown. This is what I was looking for. Something a little on the darker side, yeah. I think that makes more sense to me. Now, don't forget about those pretty plumage down there below. Let's go back to that really nice magenta and really kind of pull it out like that with some purples too, I think. I want to make it darker as it goes back to the bird. So we're going to bring in that purpley color we used before so it blends as if it's coming right behind the bird, like this. But then on the end of each of these little plumage pieces, you find that really pretty light blue dot. Now remember, I'm working at a fast pace because this is a video. But if you were doing this at home, watching me, you can stop the video. You can say, oh, I need to see the colors that she used on the bird's face. I need to see the colors she used on the bird's feathers, those pretty feathers that are coming out from the top of the head. I want to know what those colors were. So you could go back, and I'm bringing that same magenta color right out. You could make this Fwooper a neon green Fwooper. I tend to like the purples that I've seen in the many pictures I've seen of the Fwooper, but don't feel like you have to do that. I'm going to come back in here now with a little bit of black just to outline, add some details to the legs, the claws. And now I'm going to really start turning my attention to, I think, to the background. Now, since the Fwooper is such a warm-colored kind of creature, and I'm just going to add a little bit of detail around the feathers here to make it stand out with a little bit of black. I'm thinking that maybe I would like to use some cool tones for the background. So like maybe a pretty aqua here. But you may want to make it more like a nighttime sky. So you could choose a different color. I'm just using a light aqua, and I'm doing a diagonal stroke just to kind of, because the bird is up so straight, I'm adding some diagonal strokes to make it look a little more like there's some action behind the bird. If I did vertical, I think it would just enhance all the straightness of the bird. And I want to kind of add a little contrast. So I'm making my strokes, as I said, go sort of in a diagonal pattern. And I'll put it down here below the branch. And I think I might even overlay, and this is very light. You can see I'm using my whole wrist, moving it quickly across the picture. And remember I talked about using a little white oil pastel? I'm going to do that in a minute to enhance that area around the face. And what else could I use? Maybe I'll use a little bit of green. Yeah. So again, I want to get some colors that are a little less of the pink tones, go into the green. The background could be any color you want. You can make it sunset colors. You can make it a dark, dark black if you wanted. I'm just having fun with some greens and some blues. And again, very light, intentionally light, just filling in the background. Now, here comes that white oil pastel we talked about. So I want to kind of enhance that lightness around the eye. So I'm going to go in here a little bit and really just bring out the Fwooper's eyebrows and the whiteness right below the eyes. Not completely surrounding the eyes, just a little bit below. And there's a little whiteness up here too. I want to kind of bring that out and around the edge. So this is why an oil pastel or a crayon can help you bring out those details. And maybe a little highlight on the beak. And lighten up the feet, and there you go. So here you go. You have a Fwooper drawing. It wasn't that hard because you think of that teardrop shape, and I hope you had fun. This is Doris Benter. Remember that you can always go back and re-watch parts of the picture. But I want to thank you so much for joining me today for this program. Doris Benter from Library Arts. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.